Good morning, Willowbrook. I hope you're doing well. Today we are in Titus chapter 2. And this chapter today is all about Christian living. Now, we know that we're not saved by our works. We're not saved by how we live our lives. We're saved by grace through faith. But once we receive that gift of grace, I believe we have a responsibility to live out in a certain way that the world around us would see that we are believers. Verse 7 really stood out to me today as Paul writes Titus. He says this, "In everything, set them an example by doing what is good. In your teaching, show integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you may be ashamed, because they have nothing bad to say about us." So here he's not talking about just speaking the right things, but also doing what is good and being an example to those around him. When I read this, I was reminded of the nation of Israel. In Exodus 19, God said that Israel was to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Now, when you think about priests and what they do, they are mediators between God and other people. So God had called Israel to live holy lives in such a way that the surrounding nations would see how they were living, that it would be different than how they were living their own lives. And these surrounding nations would be drawn to God because of the lives of the people of Israel. Now, this is exactly what we're called into today. This is exactly what we're reading, that we're supposed to set an example by how we live. But if you're familiar with the Old Testament story, you know that Israel didn't really meet that expectation. So how is Titus supposed to meet this expectation? How are we today supposed to meet this expectation? Look at verse 11 through 12. It says, "The grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people. It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age." So see, it's God's grace that teaches us how to live the way that we're called to live. I love the words of Jesus in Matthew 5. It says, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." And he goes on to say, to let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. This is our calling as Christians, to be examples to the world, to live lives in such a way that we're pointing people to God. And what was impossible by our own strength has now been made possible by the grace of God. So let's go live it out. God bless you.